So, all right, once again, I welcome you back into today's class. So, what we're going to be focusing now is the web server hacking. So, we're going to know how a bad guy can hack into your web server if they found a vulnerability on it. So, the tools we'll be using right now is a parrot and OWASP. So, this parrot here is going to be acting as an attacker machine, and OWASP here is going to be acting as a victim machine. So you'll be using parrots to be hacking into the OWASP, which is a vulnerable web server. So the disclaimer, this video is only meant for educational purpose. You don't use it for someone you don't have the right access. So if I come here on my OWASP, once in the OWASP, if you type ifconfig, you're going to see what the address is. So once you type ifconfig, you will see your IP address. So if I open the browser and I put the IP address on the browser, it's going to be showing me all the website that is hosted on the OWASP. So like what I explained to you, OWASP here is a broken web application, which consists a lot of vulnerable websites. So we're going to be using this parrot here to be hacking into this particular OWASP. So for you to know the IP address of your parrot as well, you're going to be using ifconfig and you hit enter key. So once you type ifconfig, you will see that your parrot IP is a 192.168.0.135. And my OWASP is a 192.168.0.130. So we're going to ping it. So if I ping my OWASP, which is a 0.130, and I hit enter key, so we're going to be getting reply, which means that the parrot is able to communicate with the OWASP. So I'm going to use Ctrl-Z to stop. So let's open the command we'll be using. The first command here is the nmap. So as we all know the function of nmap, nmap is made for vulnerability scanning. We can use nmap to scan for open port, for service, for port number, for a lot of things. All right. But the command here says nmap-xv. What does this SV stand for? This S here is stand from service and the V here stand from the version. So we want to check the services and the version of services that is running on this particular web server, which is our OWASP. So we're going to copy the command. So we're going to copy this command and we'll go to our parrot and we're going to paste the command. As you all know the function of this command, nmap here is a tool that we use for vulnerability scanning. What is the function of x? X means that we want to scan for service. And what's the function of v? We want to know this version of each services on this particular victim. So we hit enter key. So once we hit enter key, we're going to hold on for these tools here to start the scanning. So we're going to hold on for nmap to finish the scanning. So we hold on for nmap to finish the scanning. So wait for nmap to finish the scanning before we move on. This scanning can take like a little bit time, but just hold on for it. Just hold on for it to finish. All right. So once the nmap finish the scanning, if I scroll up, you're going to see port 22, which use TCP, And the state of port 22 is what? Is open. And the services that is using port 22 is a SSH. So SSH is the one using port 22. And if you see the version of that port 22 is the open SSH 5.3. So which means that the version of the SSH here is a 5.3. And if you come to the second port, which is port 80, the services running on port 80 is a HTTP, and the version of that port 80 here, which is the HTTP, the version of the service is a 2.2.14. So that's the function of that command, nmap-sv, to discover the services and to discover the version of each services. Okay, so let's go to the next command. The next command here is a MSF console, which is the tools that we'll be using to be exploiting the attack. So we'll copy it. So we hit enter key, we're going to paste it there, MSF console, and we hit enter key. We're going to hold on for these tools here to come up. So we're going to hold on for these tools to come up. So we're going to wait for these tools to come up. So when these tools is coming up, after these tools is up, you will see MSF6. This MSF6 here is a Metasploit framework version 6, which is the latest version of a Metasploit. So once you see this MSF6, you go to go. So let's go to the next command. So the next command here says search Apache Tomcat. So how do we get this Apache Tomcat? So if I go up to the first scanning that we use an nmap to scan, you will see here that we discover that port 8080 is open, and the services using port 8080 is a HTTP, and the version of the HTTP is a Apache Tomcat. So that's the reason why here now say we want to search all the modules that we can use to break in through Apache Tomcat. So we're going to copy the command, and we'll head into our parrots. Inside your Metasploit, you're going to paste, and we're going to hit enter key. So once we hit enter key, you can see here that we have different modules that we can be using to hack into the Apache Tomcat. It started from 0 down to 19, which means that we have 20 different modules. So let's open the next command. The next command now says use number 15. So out of all those modules, we are using number 15. And what does number 15 says? The number 15 here says auxiliary scanner HTTP Tomcat management login. Okay, so we want to be hacking through these management logins to get what the username and password that they are using to log in into that particular web server. So we're going to hit enter key, and we're going to type use 15, and we hit enter key. So once you use 15, the next thing is to set the R host. What does R host stand from? R host stands from remote host, which is the IP address of the victim. And the IP address of our OWASP is a 192.168.0.130. So once you copy your OWASP IP, which is the victim that we want to hack into, we're going to copy the command. So once we copy the command, we're going to paste, and we hit enter key. So the next command here says exploit. Exploit means that we want to know everything that they use to log in to this particular victim. So we want to be testing all the available username and password just to be able to get the username and password that they use to log in. So if I paste this exploit and I hit enter key, so you're going to see our parrot going to be testing different username and password. So Metasploit tech admin, it says incorrect. It tells the one that says admin manager, it says incorrect. But if you scroll down here, you will see that we have one that is successful here. The other one is failed, but this one is successful with a username of root and the password of OSBWA. So we are able to get the credential, which is the username and the password. Okay, so let's move on to the next. The next command here now says usees. So how do we get these usees, and what does usee says? If I go back to these modules, the first thing we use here is that we first use 15 for us to get wherever the username and passwords to log into this management login page. And after we get this, the next thing now say usees. What does UC says? We now want to exploit the information that we get for management login. All this username and password that we get, we want to exploit and use this to log in to the web server through our terminal. And the UCCs exploit multi-HTTP Tomcat management deploy. So we want to use the information to exploit and log in to the particular management login page. So I'm going to type UCs and we hit enter key. So once I type uses, I hit enter key. The next thing we're going to be using is a show options for us to see all the available commands and all the available options we need to set. So once I hit enter key, you can see we have different what you need to set. You can sell the proxy, you can sell the rhost, rport, xsl, vhost, you can sell lhost, lport. So all those things, those are the options that you need to set. So we have a lot of options. You can set the HTTP password, HTTP username. So let's go to the next command. The next command now says set rhost. Like what I explained to you, rhost stands from a remote host, which is the IP address of the victim. 192.168.0.130, which is the IP address of our OWASP. So I copy. Once we copy the command, we'll go into the Metasploit and we're going to paste it and we hit enter key. So once we set the ROs, the next thing is to set R ports. So the R port we are using here is port 8080, which is the port number that is working for Apache Tomcats. If you can remember that time, if I scroll up, when we are using Nmap to scan, we discover that port 8080 is open. And we are using Apache Tomcats to log in into this particular OR. So that's the reason why we are still using the port number. We are using Apache Tomcat, which is the version, and we are now using the port number, which is the 8080. Okay, so I scroll down, I'm going to set the R port, which is a remote port, which is a 8080. We hit enter key. So once we set the R port, the next thing is to set the HTTP password based on the information that we are able to get. We are able to get the username and password when we are scanning. We are able to get the username and password. So once we get it, the next thing is to set the HTTP password. We hit enter key. The next thing is to set the HTTP username based on the information we are able to get. We'll copy it and we'll come here and we're going to paste and we hit enter key. So once we set the username and password, the next thing is to set the RL host, which is a local host. We need to set the L host, which is the local host, which is the IP address of your parrot, 192.168.0.135. The IP address of our attacker machine is 0.135. So once it set it, you copy the command and you come to the parrot and you're going to paste and you hit enter key. So the last command you'll be using here is a exploit. So we're going to type exploit and you hit enter key. So you hold on, all right, boom. So once you see Metasploit, it's showing you that we are able to hack into that particular victim. Okay, so we are able to hack into the victim. Which victim we are able to hack into server? All right, so once you see the Metasploit, we have some couples of commands that we can be using here. The first command here says sysinfo, which stands from a system information. So if you type sysinfo and you hit enter key. So you're going to see that the victim that we are able to hack into, the computer name is a OWASP BWA, and the operating system running on the victim is a Linux, and we have the version of the Linux, and the Metasploit here is a Java. Okay. So the next command here says shell. What does shell do? Shell is to open the terminal of the victim. So if I type shell and I hit enter key, you're going to see that I'm going to tell you process one channel and channel one created. Process one created and channel one created. Okay, so if I type if config and I hit enter key, you will see that the IP address is showing me here is a 192.168.0.130. The same thing we are able to get on this particular web server. If I type if config, you will see that the same thing this web server is showing me, which is this particular OWASP, the same thing is showing me. So this means that we are able to hack into these OWASP from our parrot, which is a web server. All right. So we have a lot of things that we can do here. So for example, if I want to see all the app, all these things that is used on this web application, all this website that is hosted on this OWASP, if I want to check it on this particular terminal, I can use ls here to list all the available folder. If I hit enter key, you're going to see that we have a folder named common, another folder named conf, we have a folder named db, we have dev logs server down to works. So I want to see all the websites hosted on it. I will be using web application. So if I enter cd web application and I hit enter key, so for me to see everything inside the web app, I need to type ls and I hit enter key. ls going to be showing me everything that they use on that particular web server. You see that here we have WebGoat, we have Mardian, we have Shepherd. If I come here, you'll be able to see all those things. You will see the WebGoats. You'll be able to see all those things that is hosted over here. You'll be able to see all those things hosted over here inside this particular terminal. So we are able to hack into the OWASP. A bad guy can delete any folder here. They can add their own folder. So for example, if I go back by using cd space dot dot and I hit enter key. So if I use ls, you will see that we are still go back to the first folder. If you want to share anything in the work, you'll be able to see. If I want to see anything in the logs, I will just use cd logs. If I use ls going to list all the logs that we have inside this particular OWASP. It's going to list all the logs. For example, if I want to open this log here, if I want to open this log here, I'm just going to type open and I paste the log and I hit enter key. So it wants to see everything inside this log. So it wants to see everything. Or for example, let me just use this guy to see the content of the log. We can use this to see the content. You can see everything about the logs and the date that they opened that particular logs. And you can actually use this guy here as well to see what the log is all about. You can use this guy here to see what the log is all about. So you can use this guy here to see what the log is all about. So if I use cd and I exit, so let me exit this place and I click yes. So we'll go back to the Metasploit. So if you want to see all the available command that we can use, you can type help. Once you type help, you will see all the command that we can be using when you are able to hack into the victim. So you will see all the command that we can be using when you are able to hack into that particular victim. So you can actually screenshot, you can do a lot of things. So that's how a web application is being carried out when a bad guy found a vulnerability on your web server. So that's how it's been carried out. So if you type screenshot, you will be able to screenshot wherever the victim is. You'll be able to screenshot wherever the victim is, and we have a lot of options here. So if I scroll up, we have system information to get the information about the remote system. We have shell. Shell is to open the command shell, which is a terminal. So we have get UID. So for example, if I type shell and I type get UID, if I type get UID, I'm coming. If I type if config, I will be able to be inside. And if I type get UID, which is a get user that is running as a server, get the user that the server is running as. So let me get the UID, let me see. That time we type sysinfo. All right, so I'm coming. So if you type sysinfo, supposed to be showing you the information of the victim. That's what I want to do. So type yes. So if I type sysinfo, all right. So if I type sysinfo, you will see the information of the victim. And if I type get UID, you will see the username that will log in is as a root. All right, so that's where we're going to be stopping for this particular web server hacking. When you able, okay, the last command here is a who am I. So let's use the last command, who am I, and you hit enter key. Who am I? But you need to enter the child before you can use this guy. So if I type who am I, it's going to show you that you are logging in is a root user. So that's the everything about the server. Okay, so that's how a web server hacking is be carried out. And here are the couples of a command that will make use for this particular tutorial. So like what I explained to you, this tutorial here is only meant for educational purpose, and you don't use it as someone else that you don't have access. All right, so this is where I'm going to stop in this topic. Before we move into the next topic.